find the input box of Visual Basic to be really useful in a C# project. So in this assignment, we're simply going to get some practice in using that input box. And we're going to create a very simple project in which we're going to ask the user for an employee's name and their hourly wage and how many hours they worked. And we're going to use the input box 3 times to do that. So the first time they'll enter a name, next time they'll enter their hourly wage, and then finally the hours they worked. And we're going to calculate then in a message box what their pay should be, taking into account if they work more than 40 hours, they should get time and a half for those hours over 40. It's also going to give us some practice in terms of parsing a string into a double value. So we want a double value for the wage and a double value for the hours. And then also some concatenation in terms of the output for our message box, along with formatting a value to currency using that C2 in a toString. Provide some test data here, make sure everything works. Anyway, I'm going to go back and watch the previous video on how to do the input box. Remember, we have to add a reference to Visual Basic, save our project, and then include a directive to Microsoft Visual Basic. By the way, in the newer version of Visual Studio, recently released 2022, Visual Studio 2022, you do not have to add the reference, nor do you need the directive. Both the reference and the directive will be inferred from our code. All we need to do is use the statement of Microsoft.visualbasic.interaction.inputBox. Use that method. Let's take a look at the project. Our project consists of a very small form with some instructions and a single button. When we click the button, we're asked to enter an employee's name, and we're then asked to enter their hourly wage. Let's say they make $20 an hour. Notice that you could use a decimal, so it is a double value that's being converted here. And then how many hours they worked. Well, if we put in 45, we know that the 40 hours times 20 is $800, and the 5 hours would be time and a half at $30 an hour. That'd be 150. So we should get 950 as our answer. And that's exactly what we get. The gross pay for John Mitchell is $950. I'm going to suggest you pause here, and then if you have struggles, come back and watch the code review of my solution for the remainder of this video. The interface simply consists of a small window with a label for the instructions, and then a button named BTN Calc Pay. Let me double click that Calc Pay button, and we'll take a look at our code. So I'm using the Microsoft Visual Basic.interaction.inputBox method, and we have a directive up here of using Microsoft Visual Basic. I'd already gone in and added that as a reference, and just to refresh your memory on how to do that, we can go to Project, Add Reference, and then make sure you have Visual Basic checked. And then of course you want to save your project. As already mentioned in the newer Visual Studio 2022, you don't need to add that reference and add the directive. You can just use the statement Microsoft.visualbasic.interaction.inputBox. So the input box takes 2 parameters here. One is the prompt that we want to give. In this case, enter the employee's name, and then the title, enter employee. I could do a third one, which would be a default value. Then we're going to create another prompt of enter, and we're going to take my name, hourly wage, and a prompt 2, enter the hours, my name, and worked this week as our second prompt. So now we'll add the input box again twice, this time entering the wage, and we're going to do a default value of $17.50. We'll say that's what most of the employees make in this company, and enter the hours, and we'll say most work 40. That's going to return a string from the input box. We want to convert that to a double value, so we use double.parse and place that into 2 double variables, wage and hours. Then I have another variable called OT hours for overtime. It equals 0.0. If the hours are greater than 40, we're going to have the OT hours equal the total hours minus 40, and the hours would equal 40. Another variable called pay, which is a double value, is going to equal our wage times the hours plus the overtime hours, if there are any, times wage times 1.5. We want to pay that out at time and a half. That'll give us our pay, and all we need to do is concatenate that in a message box. So the gross pay for, and the name is, And then the pay.toString, we're going to convert that to currency. So our modifier here is C2, string in quotes, and our title is gross pay. Very simple project, but gives you some good practice using input boxes. If you just jumped into this video, you can see all the videos from the C# Xamarin Programming Cohort playlist by clicking on the image in the lower right. And if you'd like to be alerted to future videos that I create, you can click my picture up in the top right and subscribe to the channel.